Please try it out. Could you lie on your back with your eyes open? And lying on your back with your eyes open, thank you. Lying on your back with your eyes open, really notice what kind of world appears to you. You can see the nice geometric ceiling with little bits blobbed onto it. There's the lights, there's the different shades. Even if you don't move your eyes very much, you'll notice that the walls on the side are a kind of a different shade to the ceiling. So there's a whole visual world that appears to you lying on your back. So what would happen if you intentionally moved your eyes a little bit to look around yourself? And some of you doing the implied, which is, oh, I move my eyes, I move my head. So for a long time, this is the kind of world that appears to us when we're infants, lying on our backs, in our cots. And it can keep us interested for a long, long time. It kind of motivates us to move. Oh, what's over there? There's something visually interesting, disturbing. Oh, what's over there? What's over there? And bring your eyes to the middle so that you're seeing primarily what's ahead of you. And then close your eyes. And so now the visual world disappears, more or less. Some of you might be still seeing colors and things like that, but more or less the visual world is gone. And then a whole different world appears. You can hear the kettle going over there. It's a world of sound, of touch, of smell. And for those of you that come from country areas, you might notice that big buildings like this with a bit of a history have their own smell to them. So yes, there is a particular fingerprint of olfaction in this room. But if you withdraw your attention to the field of sound and bring your attention into the field of sensations within your body, then what appears to you? And some of those sensations might directly relate to your experience of how you are in contact with the ground, just like you've been doing the last few days. And then other sensations have nothing to do with your relationship with the ground or the room around you, but are actually just sensations of your internal self. Everything that's within your skin. And what is really beneficial for us as students of the Feldenkrais method or any other somatic approach or any mindfulness approach is that as adults, we can choose and meander and rove with our attention from one sensory field to another sensory field to a third, fourth, fifth. So the world can become a very, very rich place through the intentional act of directing your attention to different sensory fields. Without disturbing your inner sense of yourself too much, please roll onto your front so that you're lying on your front with the top of your head towards the back of the room. And position your hands somewhere near your head. And rest your head right in the middle. So it's either your forehead resting on the floor or your chin resting on the floor, but some part of the central line of your face resting on the floor. And in this position, open your eyes. And now notice, visually, what world is present to you when you're lying on your tummy like this? What's different in the quality, in the diversity of what you can see when you're lying on your belly? Now, turn your head to one side, keep your eyes open, and notice how much a different world appears just through the act of turning your head to one side. And then come back to the middle. And then turn your head to that same side again. And come back to the middle. And just track the changing visual world as you go from eyes close to the floor and then eyes out to the side. Now, all of you have made a choice about which direction to turn your head. Some of you are turning your heads to the right, some of you are turning your heads to the left. And I'm not asking you to make a variation at all. Just simply notice that you've made a choice. Now, close your eyes and now go into this internal world, the world of bodily experience, and have your head in the middle. And now turn your head to the side you've been turning it, and notice what parts of you make contact with the floor. How does your, to use Susan's image yesterday, how does that rubber stamp image of yourself on the floor change when you turn your head to one side? And then come back to the middle. And if you go back and forth between these two ways of orienting your face, gradually, over a series of slow repetitions, discover how much of yourself moves in order for you to turn your face and in order for you to bring yourself back. And some of you might distinctly feel that when you turn your head to one side, the pattern changes in how your chest makes contact with the floor. One side of the chest leans more, the other side less. And some of you will feel, how the front of the pelvis and the front of the abdomen change contact. One side is firmer contact, one side less contact. And if you keep on like this, you might form a completer image, a more richer image that includes the thighs, the knees, the feet, the arms. Now bring your head to the middle and slowly begin to explore turning your head to the other side. And notice, does the way you move yourself to do that, is that different to this side? And because you've built up a representation, an image of what it was like to do on the other side, you now have a basis for comparison. Oh, what's the same? What's different? And if you're not sure, there's one thing you can always do. Turn your head to the original side and find out what happens. Then turn your head to the opposite side and feel the difference. And it's in that difference of experience that your knowledge arises. Now, it could be for some of you, there's a radical difference between how you turn your head to one side and the way you configure yourself and how you turn your head to the other side. And for some of you, the differences are going to be so small, you have to be quite patient and delicate with yourself to find them. But differences there will be. Now, the next time that you have your head turned to the left, that means the right side of your face will be resting on the floor, stay there. And pay attention to the relationship of your hands to your head. Make sure that the hands are not too far away from the head, but not too close. And from this position, ever so slightly reduce the amount of contact between the right side of your face and the floor, and then return. In other words, lift your head a little bit from the floor, just enough to feel a reduction in pressure, just enough to free yourself a little bit from the floor, and then come back down. The next time you have your head lifted, keep it lifted that little amount and start to move your head in the direction of your left shoulder. And free yourself from any idea of actually getting there. Just have it as a destination, a direction of travel, and then return. Do that many, many, many times. And you know, every time you bring your head to the middle, you can pause a bit. You can lower the head down, refresh yourself a moment, and then off you go again. Lift the head, take it to the left shoulder, come back. Now here's a question. I say the word head, but for you, is there a particular part of your head that you're thinking of as you're directing your head towards your shoulder? And that can sound a little bit abstract. So let's try out some of these. As you take your head towards your shoulder, think of your nose. That the distance between the nose and the shoulder is decreasing and then increasing. And then switch to which part of your head you're attending to, and attend to your chin. As you take your head towards your shoulder, think of your chin. And as I walk around the room, I can see that some of you have this slight tendency, it's not very big, but a slight tendency to actually turn your head a little bit so that the nose goes a little higher to the ceiling or closer to the floor. Is it possible not to do that? Is it possible to just take your head across to the left and bring it back without any turning? And now change that, what you're thinking about. Think of your forehead as you take your head to the left, to the shoulder, and return. And now think of your mouth. Ah, the mouth. Isn't this where we started? Think of the mouth going towards the shoulder. Now bring your head to the middle, lower your head down, just pause for a moment. And as you're paused there, think of the back of your head. Especially think about that part of the back of the head that rests on the floor when you're lying on your back. Can you recall what part of the back of the head rests on the floor? And now, having that part of the back of your head in mind, once again, lift your head and move it in the direction of your left shoulder while thinking of the back of your head. And notice, when you conceive of the movement like this, is the experience different? Could it be that the way we think about movement influences how we experience ourselves moving? And now in your own time, could you change what part of your head you're thinking about with each repetition? So once think about the mouth, next time think about the chin, next time think about the eyes, next time think about the forehead, next time think about the back of the head. And by doing this, you're actually building up a richer and richer and richer representation of your image of yourself moving. And that's a nice bunch of words, but what do those words mean in your experience? Well, check in, sense. What happens as you start to develop a more elaborated notion of what it is to bring your head to your shoulder. Great. Bring your head to the middle. And if you are still comfortable lying on your front, remain lying on your front. And if you're challenged by this position, please come out of it for a little while and rest in a position that refreshes you. And that invitation extends to any moment in this lesson. Please do never, never, ever persist in the face of discomfort. Now return to lying on your front again. Have your hands palms down on the floor, somewhere near your head, not too close, not too far, not somewhere where you feel your shoulders are all kind of bunched up and there's no possibility to move. Somewhere where you can feel there's latitude for motion. Turn your head to the right. And certainly move the rest of yourself in such a way that it allows you to remain comfortable with your head turned to the right. And from here, ever so slightly lift the head and then begin to move your head towards the right shoulder and then return. And do that many times. Now, you're no longer naive. You've done one side. So you already have an idea of what the possibilities are on this side, whether you can think of your chin or your nose or your forehead or your eyes. But let's go through that systematically anyway. Because sometimes we can just go a little bit too fast, thinking that we know what's going on. So let's just slow down a bit and intentionally think of your chin as you take your head to the right shoulder. And check in. Are you turning your head? Or are you just kind of floating your head along the floor without any rotation, without the nose getting higher from the floor or closer to the floor? And if you find yourself turning your head, could you find a way not to? So that it's almost like the head drifts parallel to the floor without any turning and then comes back again. I think in the field of geometry, they call this kind of movement translation. That the object being looked at is translating through space without any other motion, just in one plane. And now change your thinking to your forehead. And then change your thinking to your mouth. That yes, you're still moving your head through space, but it's the mouth that's in the foreground of your attention. And note, does that change your experience of moving? And now think of the back of your head. And now in your own time, shift your attention from one aspect of your head to another aspect, or if you want to hear it a little bit differently, from one point, one place on the head to another place, to another place, to another place. Forehead, nose, mouth, chin, back of head. And if you were to continue like this, if you were at home by yourself and you were exploring this, you could continue this ongoingly for a long time, because the three-dimensional object that is your head has lots of places on it. So this is just a hint, a beginning, a direction that could interest you, and you can continue. Great. Let that be. Rest, please. Refresh yourself lying on your tummy, lying on your side, a position that's comfortable. So on the one hand, we have the body as we experience it from a sensation point of view. And then on the other hand, we have a body that's named, linguistically labeled. And yesterday we were talking about the terminology from anatomy, and anatomists have all these labels for the body. But, even non-anatomists like you and I have names for the body: head, shoulder, hand, knee, foot, toes. And at some point in all of our lives, we mapped those sensations of our bodies onto those labels. Somehow or other, some of the games that get played with parents and children, songs, you get to know by name the various parts of your body. Please return to lying on your tummy, lying on your front. But this time, have your head resting in the middle, with your chin on the floor. And if this is particularly not favorable to you, you can always put something a little bit underneath yourself to make it easier, maybe a folded towel or a blanket. And with the head lying in the midline like this, in the midline of your body, lift your head a little bit and put it down. Do that many times and get curious about what happens through the rest of you when you go to lift your head when it's in the middle like this. What parts start to leave the floor and what parts of you start to land more onto the floor? The next time you go to lift your head, make an intentional variation. Lift your head by leading with your eyes. In other words, the eyes initiate the movement. Think to yourself that you want to see the back of the room where all the books are at the back, and the camera and Susan and all the gear and the mess. Just yeah, have that. You're not a mess, Susan. Yeah, have that as an intent. That the eyes lead the way and the head follows, which is something that some of you might have been doing already, but now we're exploring it intentionally. And now intentionally switch over. Instead of leading with the eyes, just simply lift the head and let the eyes just sit there or hang there, as the case may be. Now, stop a moment, lower your head, and could you all take your arms and put them beside you so that the palms are up towards the ceiling and your arms are lying beside you, beside the trunk. And could you once again lift and lower your head? And notice, how does this change in arm position affect the lifting? Is it easier? Is it more difficult? Has something been taken away from your capacity to lift? And now lower your head and change your arm position again so that the palms are somewhere near the face, not too close, and the elbows are out to the side, but not too out to the side. And now lift your head and feel what this configuration of the arms affords you, in other words, offers you in terms of lifting. Is it different? Good. I can see some people taking their arms down, bringing their arms up, trying to feel what's different, what's different. That's good learning. Now bring your hands up, have the palms down, somewhere near your head. And once again, return to initiating with the eyes to lift your head and find out when you can see the back wall, how high up along the back wall can you see? Can you see just to that place where the wall meets the floor? Can you see a quarter of the way up the wall? Halfway? 2/3? And you know, it's kind of implicit in this training that when we invite you to find out how far, we also mean with ease, without experiencing strain. So what's within your easy range of capability, of ability? With no strain in the eyes, no strain in the muscles of the neck, the muscles of the back. That doesn't mean an absence of work. It means an absence of strain. The next time you have your head lifted and you're looking at the wall at the back of the room, stay there. And now make a note. How high up the wall can you see? Remember that, and we'll come back to that in a moment. Lower your head. Rest your chin on the floor. And now delicately, very delicately, move your eyes as if you wanted to see your pubic bone. That bone that's on the front of your pelvis near the genitals. And then return your eyes to the place that they started from. And do that very delicately, smoothly, many, many times. And over a period of repetitions, you might find your eyes going further without any increase in effort. And ask yourself, is there a difference in your experience when you just simply move your eyes there because I suggested that you do that, and move your eyes with an internally generated intent to see there? So there's movements that you can do that you do just because they're being asked for, and there's movements that you do that are generated from an intent that's right down inside you. And can you experience a difference between those two ways of mobilizing yourself? The next time that your eyes are returned to where you started from, pause there. And then after a brief pause, lift your head, leaning with the eyes to look at the wall at the back of the room, and notice, where do you go to now? How high up the wall can you see? And lower the head, rest yourself completely, and you can refresh yourself for a little while, either by reflecting on what you just experienced or completely resting, whatever you need to do to refresh yourself. So here's a suggestion. It took a while for me to understand this, so I'd like to share it with you early on because it might change the nature of your practice. You know, in awareness through movement lessons, there are a lot of movements that are suggested to you, you know, in words. And when you hear those offerings, those suggestions, it's possible just to hear them as movement instructions. Okay, I'll do that movement, I'll do this movement, etc., etc., etc. But what would happen if, for example, I say to you, lift your head, but you took it on board as an idea that you have an intent, a deep intent that you want to explore? So rather than it being an instruction that's coming from the outside, you go, oh, I like that idea. I think I'll take that. That's going to be mine, and I'm going to explore that. Then becomes the exploration of an intent rather than just the exploration of some movement that's been suggested. Try it out. Come back onto your front. That's a funny way of talking. Come back onto your front. Roll onto your front. Have your hands somewhere near your head, your forehead, or I'm sorry, your chin resting on the floor. And now bring all of your attention to your right eye. and intend to lift your head to see the back of the room with your right eye. And when you form that intention within yourself, go ahead and do it. So lift your head, put it down, lift your head, put it down. Look, see, intend through the right eye. And notice, does that change a little bit how you lean on the floor? Sometimes when I'm running workshops on eyes, I have eye patches, and I get people to wear eye patches on one eye. And that way they're really literally looking through one eye. Now, I don't suggest that you close the other eye, but just simply attend to the right eye. And notice, does the way you move yourself to perform that intent change when you've got a strong focus just on one eye? And lower your head. Switch eyes. And it might take some of you a little while to feel that, now my intention, my attention has switched to the left eye. Now I can lift. And you lift your head, leading with the eye, as if you wanted to see the back wall of the room. And then lower your head again, and now think of both eyes. And lift the head, leading with both eyes. And because you've elaborated your experience, you've thought of one eye, you've thought of the other eye, now the sense of moving with both eyes could be a little different. Great. And now intentionally play with that for a little while. Sometimes one eye, sometimes the other eye, sometimes both eyes, but allow your awareness to spread throughout the whole body. And notice, when you look through one eye, is the way you lean against the floor different? Does your head turn? Does the head lift more easily with one eye? Or does it lift more easily with both eyes? So you're looking throughout your whole self to see what the effect is when you're just attending to seeing through one eye. And because you have some of the most sensitive parts of your hands on the floor, you can even feel with your hands, is there a change in pressure of the palms on the floor when I lift with both eyes, or thinking of one eye or the other eye? So from the top of your head right down to the tips of your toes, you can spread your awareness, finding out more and more about how things differ with changes of intent. Yeah. Lower your head to the middle. Stop. Pause a while, refresh yourself. return to lying on your front. Have your head resting in the middle, in the midline of your body. And now bend both of your knees. And bend them in such a way that you know that the lower legs are pointing towards the ceiling, not pointing towards the front of the room, not pointing towards the back of the room, but pointing towards the ceiling, which just happens to coincide with there being a right angle, 90-degree angle in your knees. You just spend a few moments searching for that. So sometimes go off vertical, sometimes return, sometimes go past vertical, and feel the difference. Because looking throughout the room, most of you, when you first did it, went straight to vertical. Oh, that was pretty cool. How did you know where that was? Some sensation informed you. But when I asked that question, would you be able to tell me what sensation informed you? What is the sensation that you associate with the lower legs being vertical? In other words, pointing towards the ceiling. And to get to that answer is not necessarily a simple thing. In language, anyway. Now, leave your legs pointing towards the ceiling, your lower legs. And in this position, with the hand somewhere near your head, once again, lift your head in the direction of the back of the room and come back. And now we've changed one criteria, how the legs are shaped. So far you've been lifting your head with the legs long. Now you've just changed how the legs are. Does this make a difference? Are you more able to lift your head or less able? Is it lighter? Is it more comfortable? Can you see higher up the wall when you have your legs bent like this? Lower your legs down. Put the feet back on the floor. Lift your head again. What's different? Bend your knees again, lift your head, and keep on inquiring. What difference does this change in the legs make to my experience of lifting my head? Now, the next time your head is down, leave your head down and turn your head to the left so that the right side of the face is making contact with the floor. It could be the ear, it could be the cheek, it could be the side of the jaw, the temple, but some part of the right side of the face. And now with your legs bent, start to do what you did at the beginning, which is to lift your head and take your head in the direction of your left shoulder. And then return. And after a while, with each repetition, change that part of your head that you're attending to. So the forehead, the chin, the mouth. Can you recall all those different places you were thinking of? One at a time, visit each of those places with your attention quite methodically as you take your head to the left and return to the middle. But don't turn the head. Don't turn the head. Just drift the head along the floor without any turning. It doesn't matter how far you go. Doesn't matter if you just move a millimeter towards the shoulder. Now continue what you're doing and intentionally lower the legs down, have the feet on the floor, and feel what's different when the legs are long. So it's the same activity, but just one little change. The legs long rather than bent. Okay, bring the head to the middle. Very, very slowly. Actually, over at least a period of 30 seconds, quite a while, turn your head to the other side. Very slowly. Probably a better way to express that was take several breath cycles to turn the head. At least 2. And in this position, keep the legs long and start to lift the head and take it in the direction of the right shoulder. Do that a few times. And then after a few repetitions, bend the knees, have the lower legs towards the ceiling, and continue. And what difference does it make? Now, keep doing what you're doing. Leave the hands where they are. In other words, don't shift the position of the hands on the floor. And now change your intent a little bit. Form in your mind the intention of putting the left side of your face on the back of your right hand. I'll say that again. Form the intention of putting the left side of your face on the back of your right hand. Once again, there's no compulsion to get there. There's no compulsion to do it, but have that idea informing your movement. And how is this different to taking your head towards your shoulder? Again, if you're not sure, you are always encouraged to return to the original intent, feel what happens, and then go to the new intent and discern the difference. So your head is turned to the right. You don't bring it back to the middle. Your head just stays turned to the right. Now, let's see if we can do something to facilitate this a little bit. That left hand of yours, could you put it in such a way that you could use it to push against the floor? And maybe you could have that left elbow a little bit up in the air so that you can kind of just generate a bit of a push. Not a massive push, but just enough to kind of push. And now try it out like this. And if you want, matter of fact, I'd recommend it, you could go looking for a place to put that left hand that would even more facilitate your head going to the right. Yeah. And just having the arm like this, in this configuration, Now you can borrow the power of that left arm to somehow move you through your trunk across to the right, and to bring that left side of the face closer and closer to the possibility of resting on the back of the hand. Good. Return to the middle, rest a little bit. Please return to lying on your front. Bend your legs. Have your head turned to the left. Place the right hand on the floor with the elbow up in the air in a place that you could use it to purchase a little bit, to push the floor a little bit, and start to take your head across to the left, as if you wanted to put the right side of your face on the back of your left hand, that direction. And pay attention, do your legs stay vertical or do they tilt? Just because you start with the legs vertical as something initial doesn't mean that they necessarily stay there. Good. Now stop. Lower the right elbow. Just have the elbows on the floor, the hands on the floor near your head. Keep the knees bent. And once again, lift your head to see the back wall and notice how far up the back wall can you see now. Maybe right up to where the wall meets the ceiling. What's changed? A little bit higher? Great. Lower your head down. Lower your feet down. And now, finally, lengthen your arms out along the floor above your head. And please feel free to change the angle a little bit. They don't have to be directly up. They can be just a little bit spread and apart, but definitely the arms above the head on the floor. And now bend your knees again. And ever so slightly, lift the right thigh and the right knee off the floor, and then let it go back down again. Lift, release. Lift, release. Lift, release. Lift, release. Doesn't have to be big. Just lift, release. And start to make that quite rhythmical. Toop, 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 toop. You don't have to follow that speed, but make it rhythmical. Toop, 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 toop. Quite predictable. Toop, 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 toop. Great. Now the other leg. Leave the right leg alone. Left leg. Lift, release. Lift, release. And then once you start to get into that, make it very, very rhythmical. Lift, release, lift, release. Boop, boop, tick, took, 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 tick, took. The higher you lift, the slower you'll go. You can only go fast if it's tiny. Make it really tiny, almost like a little tremor. Matter of fact, why don't we just change that over? Instead of lifting, why don't you press the thigh into the floor? Press, release, press, release, press, release, press, release. The news of the day, press, release, press, release, press, release. That's it. And now the other leg, press, release, press, release, press it, release, press, release, press, release, press, release. You can go faster, you can go slower, you can go faster. And I'll alternate. Press the right, release. Press the left, release. Press the right, release. Press the left, release. Press, release. Press, release. Right, left, right, left, right, left. And at that moment that you release, can you feel how your leg lightens from the floor? So why don't you go ahead and switch it over now? Lift the right, lower. Lift the left, lower. Lift, lower, lift, lower, lift, lower, lift, lower. Are there any drummers here in this room? Any people that play drums? Drum the floor with your legs. Boom, 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 boom. Or those of you who like emotional things, have a little tanty. No! That's it. Great. Lower the legs down. Have your head resting in the middle. And now once again, lift your head, lead with your eyes, and find out how high up the wall can you see. And if the distance is the same, maybe the quality of the movement is a little changed. So it could be you're seeing the same place, but maybe you're lifting your head more lightly or with greater comfort. And please roll onto your back. And I know that this has been quite a long lesson. And what's your experience of lying on your back, having done all those movements lying on your tummy? Is there more of you in contact with the floor or less? So most of this lesson is being occupied with movements that you'd call extensor movements of the body. So let's just for a little while revisit some movements that you did yesterday. So bend your legs, stand your feet on the floor, interlace your fingers and put your hands behind your head. And now before you do anything, form the intention in your mind, the idea in your mind that you want to lift your head as if to put it in that space between your knees. And start to go in that direction. Off you go. Just several times, easily, nicely, generating the quality of motion that you like. And the higher the head goes, notice how different parts of yourself get pressed into the floor. Could you imagine your ears between the two knees? The right ear listening to what the right knee has to say, the left ear listening to what the left knee has to say. Great. Lower your head. And just for the sake to see if something has changed, even though you've been flexing, could you roll onto your front one more time, just briefly? Position your hands like you've been having them. Have your head resting in the middle. And now, lift your head, leading with your eyes, and find out What's that like to do having just flexed yourself? So now you're extending. Maybe flexing can help extending. Now, the next time that you go to lift your head, could you follow that lifting and let it bring you slowly up to standing in whatever way you can think of? So that lifting the head just continues upwards, 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 upwards. And isn't that what infant development all is? Getting the head as far from the ground as possible? Which means ballerinas on point are the most evolved. Or maybe tightrope walkers. So what's it like to stand having, what was that? That's right. Great. Walk a little bit, feel what walking's like. And I think you deserve a long break. Please have a 20-minute break. And we'll come back at 5 past.